Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. So I wanted to check out some more of the decks that got support in the latest pack. Stuff like Darklords, stuff like Shaddoll, and GMX, the new deck. However, I didn't really pull enough of those cards to actually try them out for myself, nor do I really have much experience with those decks. So I scoured Duel Lives for quite a while actually, and found a bunch of really solid replays to get a better understanding, not just for myself, but for you all, as to how these decks will function. So our first replay is actually going to be for Darklord. Duelist B going first here. They're playing a Sulfur engine alongside their Darklord deck, which does provide some extra disruption to the end board. It's very, very nice. So not only that, but also the Pendulum Scale from the Sulfur lets you pen to summon out some of your high-level Darklord monsters as well. Definitely makes sense, and of course they're also both fairies. So here they're going to go for the Condemned Darklord, which is made using two fairy monsters, so another obvious way in which the two archetypes synergize. And now they've got their 0 to 9 pen to scale set up. They're going to pen to summon the two Sulfur bodies from the extra deck, then use Condemned Darklord in order to add Darklord de Judy. I probably butchered that name, apologies if I did, which I again almost assuredly did. So after that, they're going to make the Link 3 Kulia here, and then they get to use the Primoa effect in order to add the Cutia. And now they're going to start summoning out their Darklord monsters. Here's the Golgalette. I believe both of those Darklord monsters we've seen so far are new. Getting to make a couple of tokens, and they can link into the Protector of the Agent's Moon. I find that these fairy archetypes are a lot like, like warrior piles or Dragon Link, where at a certain critical mass, you can definitely afford to play, just a bunch of different fairy archetypes all in one deck. There's the new Darklord Link 2 right there. I don't think it's actually a Darklord monster, but it is a Dark Fairy, and it summons out level 5 or higher monsters without tributing, so it's pretty obviously Darklord support. And here is a fusion summon for the new Darklord Evening Star, the new boss monster for the deck, allowing them to set multiple Darklord cards from the deck, one spell and one trap card. And it looks like we're going to use the spell card, the Banishment, in order to add the Asmodeus. Now, what is it, Rahamu? Yeah, Rahamu can normal summon the Asmodeus, and Asmodeus can dump Eva. Now Eva gets to activate. They're going to banish two fairies from the graveyard, getting to add the Herald of Orange Light, as well as Dawn Angel Camby. So we've got another bit of disruption set up there. Sanctified Darklord going to get added back by the Evening Star, and now it looks like Rahamu and Asmodeus are going to get linked off into the Herald of Mirage Lights, adding yet even more disruption to our end board. Asmodeus even gets to get added back by one of the graveyard effects, and we're going to set our trap cards before using the Condemned Darklord and getting some life points back. So we have a lot of disruption going into our opponent's turn here. I believe our opponent's actually going to be unbranded, if I remember right. And I mean, they are just firing off the Nadir Servant. I showed the deck list at the beginning there too, but I kind of was talking over them a little bit. All right, so that Nadir Servant, after trying to be negated by the Herald of Mirage Light, is going to get followed up with a Droplet for 4. It's going to be the whole board there. So no Evening Star quick effect, no Kulia. I believe she has a negate on her quick effect. So they're going to go for Fallen of the White Dragon here. And I'm actually really surprised that Duelist B didn't use Valor or Herald there. My thought was like, oh, maybe they're saving it for like the Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon, but then they use Darklord Rebellion to pop the Golden Sword Soul, which just causes Duelist A to move into battle phase. I kind of feel like if you were going to use a piece of disruption like that, Valor would have been the better pick here. Not only could you have used it potentially, not only could you have used your trap card later on a different target, but also, the Valor can only be used on the opponent's main phase, so I'd like using that kind of disruption when possible. Another pretty big misplay from Duelist B there, using the Herald of Orange Light on Ecclesia's effect to add back to hand. I really can't fathom why you would ever do that, especially when you know Albion is also coming up during the end phase, or maybe they just forgot. But I think either way, I would, at that point, rather just save the the Herald of Orange Light for later, then just use it again on Ecclesia of all cards. But here, Duelist B does manage to out the Dogmatica Ecclesia, as well as pretty much everything else Duelist A has at this point. So looks like they're using the graveyard effect of the Darklord Evening Star here in order to fusion summon out the first Darklord. Now, it is worth noting our opponent does still have a face-down card, and now they get some graveyard effects here, including the Golden Sword Soul. They're going to use that to revive Dogmatica Ecclesia and attempt to search, but looks like we're going to fire off the Ash Blossom in response to that. So no search for the Fallen of the Virtuous, or I would assume that's what they would get there. Another Ash Blossom is like not actually that bad of a draw here. Oh, but they're going to use the Branded Retribution. They searched off the first Darklord. That was another misplay. I really am not sure why we bothered to activate that, because I think we knew the face down card was specifically Branded Retribution, right? Yeah, we could have just done whatever we're doing here, a normal summoning effect Veiler going into the Rahamu. Rahamu F to normal summon the Asmodeus, which I don't think Branded Retribution is only affects that special summon specifically, so I'm pretty sure that Rahamu would not have been able to be stopped by the Branded Retribution. Again, I really just don't know why we activated the first Darklord there, if we knew it was going to get negated and destroyed. But again, maybe Dual Sage, or Dual Speed rather, just kind of forgot or didn't notice. It happens to the best of us for sure. All right, Token's going to get turned into Protector of the Agent's Moon. It's going to pop the face-down Tri-Brigade Springan's kit here, which is only going to provide some issues as they're going to try to summon out the Fallen of the White Dragon. Thankfully, we did have that last Ash Blossom there. So, again, that was actually a really good top deck. You pretty much always want to have that against Branded. I'm not really sure why my opponent hasn't... Or my opponent. I'm not really sure why Duelist B hasn't bothered using the Sanctified Darklord yet. I think that's another piece of disruption they definitely could and should have used before, like Herald of Orange Light or other pieces of disruption. But now we finally got Duelist A in complete top deck mode. They're going to go Branded Retribution during the draw phase here, adding back the Branded in red, which they are going to also use here to add back the Fallen of the White Dragon. But it doesn't look like they're actually able to fuse with the other card in hand. Here's Fallen of the White Dragon yet again, dumping Titaniclad this time. It's going to try to activate, and here we're using the Sanctified Darklord. I guess to be fair, this negates monster effects on the field, and of course Incredible Ecclesia activated in the graveyard, but again, I think we could have just ended up making better use of these negates. Alright, end phase, Duelist A gets back Incredible Ecclesia, which thankfully Duelist B realizes is not worth trying to interact with. And here is the Darklord Evening Star in response to the Titaniclad. We're going to copy one of the spells here, which lets us revive the first Darklord. And then Titaniclad is going to get to summon out Fallen of Albaz, which is going to activate. And then we are going to chain the Darklord Rebellion. By sending Evening Star, now we can pop Fallen of Albaz, and obviously it won't be an issue. I was a little more worried about Quem, but I guess either way, Quem would probably just threaten to get out Albaz here, right? Alright, top deck effect Veiler is not great, but we can use first Darklord to revive the Evening Star. Does revive in defense mode, which is always worth noting. We're going to copy the trap card from the graveyard in order to pop it, and then we finally get to swing in for lethal. I kind of feel like that game could have ended a couple of turns ago if played a little bit better, but still a pretty good showcasing from Darklord and their ability to control down the board here. All right, for this next one, we're going to take a look at GMX, an archetype which I pretty quickly condemned, although it is combined with Fur Hire, which also very recently got some more support. So a great time to be a Fur Hire player right now, getting not only new support, but a new variant to play with as well. So as always, we're going to be spectating from the perspective of the deck that we're interested in here. And it's not just going to be one of those games where, oh, they're playing GMX cards, but they only did for hire stuff. No, as you can see, the GMX Saland is actually going to be our only starter in this hand, which is really nice. Unless that for hire spell is a starter, and I just don't remember. Again, I'm really not very well versed in these decks at all, but okay, we're going to use Ash Blossom on the Fua. I like that. No sense in using Callby when we could save it for another hand trap, and no sense in using Droll when I think we do a fair amount of searching here. I mean, yeah, we're going to immediately do it off the Deneen, right? It's going to add Cambridge, and then Cambridge gets to add the applied experiment number 55. Now, that's going to let us excavate until we find fusion materials in order to summon our GMX fusion monster, which is a really powerful effect, although it does deal a fair amount of damage, as you can see in the process. Still, definitely not that bad of an effect at all. We're going to make the GMX Alos here. Alos F gets to special summon out the GMX partner Salanda from our graveyard, which in turn will revive this Dino Wrestler, which is a level 2 tuner. Meaning we can go for a level 10 Synchro. It's going to be the Baron de Fleur. Now here's Rookie for Hire. I guess we could have, started plays with Rookie for Hire, like summoned a hand trap and then tributed, but Obviously, a lot better to begin with the Salon here. Now we can go for the Rex Freight for Hire. That's going to add the field spell, and this in turn is going to get our For Hire plays kicked off. So, yeah, it's not just that we're using GMX and then also doing For Hire plays because we opened a For Hire card. You know, even if we didn't find the, or even if we didn't have the For Hire spell in our opening hand, we could have very easily excavated a For Hire monster off the number 55 and then gone from there. I mean, I guess it kind of would depend on what exactly we excavated, but... Oh, we got the Rex Champion for Hire. It's going to find the Rex Ride for Hire. And now we're going to link into the Keel Shipwright for Hire. I do kind of wish this would have ended on some amount of GMX cards, but I think it's completely fine. We still got to see the use case for GMX in a For Hire deck, and the For Hire side of things is really only just getting started here, as we're using the Folgo to summon out, and then we get to summon out the Rex for Hire, the level 5, and pass. Of course, level 5 Rex for Hire does represent a lot of draws here, potentially. Looks like our opponent's going to reveal the Holly-Sue in order to use the effect of another Holly-Sue in hand. I actually do like this Barrel Diffler, because we already know that one of the 4 remaining cards in our opponent's hand is totally dead, right, being the For Hire. And now when they go to activate a case for Canine, we can simply use our trap card and destroy it, meaning, of course, because it's a continuous spell, that they won't get the search. They can set the Quick Play spell, and that's fine. That's not that big of a deal at all. We get our 3 draws off the Folgo, finding Ash Blossom along the way. Excellent stuff. All right, looks like Magician's Souls. That's a little bit odd to see in Canine VS, but I suppose it is a dark monster, getting to dump the Shifter in order to summon. We're going to bring back the, not Rex for Hire, I called it Rex earlier. It's the Raphael, I think it was called. All right, we get to pop their Magician's Souls. Raphael gets to excavate, finding the Ghost Spell, yet another hand trap to use here. Here is Lupus, and then we get to actually negate the activation with the Raphael here. Raphael? I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. And yeah, now we know the last 2 cards in our opponent's hand are just a Holly-Sue they can't use and a Lupus they can't use. So we are now good to go. I think, yeah, Dual Speed is going to style a little bit here before actually finishing Duelist Day off, but it's not like super egregious. They're just remaking the Barrel Diffler, which... Well, we know the face down card, right? It's the Quick Play spell. Yeah, so there's no need to do this. I was going to say if we didn't know what the face down spell or face down card was, we would be fine, you know, resummoning Barrel Diffler. I think that would just be good gameplay, but it is styling when you just have complete information. You know what all the face down cards and cards in hand are. But either way, like I said, it wasn't super egregious, and it was really cool to see the GMX engine go into For Hire plays. All right, definitely took me quite a few refreshes to find this game, but I did actually find Shaddoll. And they're going up against Tenpai of all decks. So, Shaddoll with a set of Fimenas that I saw in there. All right, let's see how this one ends up playing out. And I actually don't know this time because I walked away from the computer while this game was playing, so... All right, the Shaddoll player did end up winning the coin flip, so they don't necessarily know that their opponent's going to be on a going second deck like Tenpai. They're going to begin with Perulia. We're going to go Void Unleashing, revealing the Squamata, adding Schism and Lev Shaddoll Fusion, and then sending the Squamata. Now Squamata F gets to dump Beast. Beast gets to give us a draw. We're going to find Armageddonite. Lev Shaddoll Fusion is going to get activated, and our opponent is going to chain the Max C. However, we get to chain the Quick Play spell L Shaddoll Fusion. So now we can Fusion Summon and not give them a material for it. We're going to fuse the Shaddoll Hedgehog in our hand with that Armageddonite we just drew, and now we can make the L Shaddoll Winda. Max C resolves, so does Lev Shaddoll Fusion, and that's just going to dump the Al Capone. I never remember what it's actually called. It just looks like it's just should be Al Capone, but Hedgehog adds Genius, and then we get to add the Incarnation here as well. Now we're going to use the Void Unleashing Graveyard effect, and then we get to add the Infernoid Decatron from deck to hand. Normal Summon does give them a draw off the Perulia. We're going to activate Decatron. They're going to chain Fijalis Harmonia, revealing Bramble Rose Dragon among some of the more usual suspects for Harmonia. All right, so now Harmonia is going to get summoned. They're going to send him along, pop the Decatron, which mills the Infernoid from deck, and then Malong gets to bounce back the Winda. So not a super ideal turn 1. Duelist A gonna fire off the Genroku right off the bat from hand. We're gonna chain Schism, and they're gonna chain Genroku effect. But I think that's actually fine, right? So Hydra gets to come out, and we're gonna fuse the Infernoid Deity, I think that's what it's called, with the Hedgehog in order to make El Shaddoll Grista. And then we can send away the Hydra with Schism. And Hydra wasn't even able to search because it actually got sent on the same chain link that it got summoned. However, of course, if our opponent had chained Genroku, then we could have just sent the Genroku anyway. So it was kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't moment there. Getting to set the Beast with our trap card from the graveyard, moving into our next turn. We're going to flip up the Beast. We get to draw 2 and then discard 1. Discarding Reshaddoll, Windy. It's going to set Squamata from our deck. Now we get to use the Phimena, and we're going to fuse the face-down Squamata with the Shaddoll Genius in our hand, and that's going to make Al Capone yet again. Ap Cologne, I think is what it actually is, but I'm just going to keep calling it Al Capone. All right, now we're going to use a whole litany of graveyard effects here. Genius is going to resolve Hedgehog as well. And now we get to use the Shaddoll Grista effect from our graveyard. Letting us fusion summon into the new El Shaddoll words. Letters, I mean. It looks like it should be Mesh Archer. That's what my dyslexia wants to call it. I suffer so much with these fantasy names. Like, I'm at a point where I can read, regular stuff just fine. But, like, these fantasy names always trip me up super hard. But it is what it is. Anyway. All right, so we're going to add off the construct, or not adding off construct, we're milling off construct, we're milling the dragon. Dragon popping the face down, which ends up being imperm, and it's just going to get used on the construct anyway. It's like, all right, could have just done that in the first place, but I guess to be fair, they didn't necessarily know their card was going to get popped, right? I mean, I don't know what Shaddoll cards do off the top of my head. Most of them anyway. Here's another construct. This one's going to be an alt art. Now we're going to mill the Aerial, and now we can banish up to 3 cards from our opponent's graveyard, which is more of a fun bonus effect than anything else. All right, going to battle, we're going to get rid of the Harmonia with Construct effect, and then still in battle phase, we're actually going to fuse with El Shaddoll Fusion. Our opponent's going to chain Fuelos, and the funny thing is we could call by here, but we're choosing not to, because of course the call by would have to be played in the Imperm column. And even if that wasn't the case, I think it's still totally fine. Like, what are they going to draw here that's actually going to matter during the battle phase? Construct and Mess Archer. Again, I'm just going to commit to the name that I saw, I guess, through my veil of... Anyway, we're going to resummon Al Capone from the graveyard, and then we even get to swing in with our newly fusion summoned monster for lethal. All right, there we have it. Those are going to be those games there. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Let's go and move on to the outro now. And thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube before for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.